Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. So this is the 5th film. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that when we were working together back on Radio 1, we talked about the first film way back.
Yeah, and Oren Peli, who's the guy who made the first one and has produced the subsequent ones, I remember coming in and, was sort of a nobody and a guy who'd become very lucky, and his movie had been around on the horror film festival circuit for a few years. And finally, Paramount picked it up and they tweaked a few things and changed the ending and released it, and it became a huge sensation. In fact, the first one, I think, is one of the most profitable films of all time.
Wow.
Because it cost so little but made so much money. That was in 2009, and then it was that Katie and Mika were the main characters in that, and then the sequel was actually a prequel, so that looked at what happened between Katie's sister, called Christy, and her son Hunter in the weeks before the events of the first one. And then you had part 3, which went back even further to when the sisters, Katie and Christy, were growing up, and a lot of the stuff that happened to them when they were kids, which was handily all captured on 80s video camera. And then part 4 goes back to the aftermath of the first one. So what happened to Katie and what she did after the events of the first movie. So now we're on to part 5. You with me?
Lost me.
Yeah,
lost
no?
me. No,
yes?
hold on,
okay.
Yeah, hold on.
So
Just get my graph. Yeah, right, okay,
so
I'm with you.
You're on part 5 now, which is described as a cousin of the original
What?
stories. Although it's not actually about a cousin, that's how its relationship is described. So there are references to and crossover points with the other films, but this one is mainly set in the Hispanic community in a city called Oxnard in California. And it's about a couple of mates, 18-year-olds, who investigate a witch-like woman who lives in their apartment block. It's actually written and directed by a guy called Christopher Landon. Now, he's written several of the other episodes. He is the son of the late Michael Landon. Do you remember him in Highway to Heaven?
Yes.
And Little House on the Prairie?
Yeah.
Well, he had 9 kids. One of them is called Christopher, and he's now making Paranormal Activity movies. So this one is the marked ones. It's Certificate 15. Here's a clip of some people freaking out.
Jesse!
Oh my god!
Jesse!
What's wrong? Jesse!
Are you that?
Are you okay? Jesse, what's
happening, man? I don't know.
Sounds rubbish. Wait, I mean, the first one, I remember when the first one came out, and there's that thing where they reversed the cameras and they were filming people at the cinema and the reactions to that. That film was utterly terrifying. And I think because of that, I was like, do you know what? I'm not going to bother with the rest of them, because why would I want to put myself through that again? But I can't understand how it's managed to continue for so long.
Well, because they've created, this backstory, and it's become an epic, really, that goes back generations of this family. But the key thing, I think, for this movie that makes it different to the others, it is not just about a family rigging up CCTV equipment around the house because they think it's haunted. And that, of course, was the conceit that made the franchise's name. Those are the famous shots of just a camera on a bedroom at 2 o'clock in the morning and seeing weird shadows and weird things happening. You're right.
Yes, sorry, it's a microphone.
But that's gone now. So it is basically just about these couple of guys who like to film everything.
Okay.
And you do occasionally find credibility stretched a little because they do just have the camera on all the time. And you think, really, would you actually film that? But at least it frees up the story to be a bit more fluid and not just rely on those same old scares, those same old static night vision shots of bedrooms in the middle of the night. It also feels a lot more like a laddie teen movie than before. There are, dirty jokes and hot girls and a bit of nudity. I mean, not Oscar-winning material by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it is a film, certainly compared to Part 4, that knows itself and knows what it wants to say very clearly. It knows its target, its focus. When it does nod to the other films, I think it gets a little muddled. Now, chronologically, I don't think it all adds up. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's a horror film, it's a fantasy. In a way, reality can be a bit bendy in those movies. Not everything has to add up. But I think you might leave the movie, if you're a fan of the franchise. This came out on Wednesday, so you might have seen it already. You might come out of the movie with more questions than answers. But I suppose that leads on nicely to presumably part 6, if that's going to happen. But, I think by going off on that slight tangent, by focusing on a different group of people, it's not even released at Halloween like all the others were. It does just take the story off in a bit of a new direction. It refreshes things enough. It's a reliable, reasonably efficient, reasonably effective, quickie horror movie.